even.
The Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast with Dotun Adebayo and Tim Vickery.
Today, but we have got the chicken tikka Mo Salah, as we call him. His Brazilian shirt name, indeed, the African football journalist, Maher Mezahi. Maher, hey, how are you? You good?
Yeah, I'm very good, Dotun. I told you a few days ago that my wife told me if you're going for 30 days to the AFCON, then I'm gonna go see my parents and friends for 10. She's coming back tomorrow, so there's light at the end of the tunnel. My stuff is packed, and I'm ready to leave in exactly 48 hours.
And like I said to you a few days ago when you told me, I think you got the better half of the deal with that one, mate. Yeah, I'll do that any day of the week. However, don't tell your wife that, obviously. But AFCON, yeah, it's upon us. It's kicking off this week, indeed, as we speak, or at least this weekend, if I'm not incorrect. And it goes on for over a month. But it's in the shadow this time around, surely, of the World Cup, and arguably even some extra days in the Champions League. How can it find space? How can it be seen as a strong tournament if it has to basically blow with the winds of change of the FIFA Federation's schedules?
We say that, Dotun, but when you look at the sheer numbers in terms of spectatorship, in terms of social media impressions, if that's a metric you want to use, the African Cup of Nations continue to grow and grow and grow and grow, despite there being a more and more congested football calendar. It's done nothing but grow. In the UK, for example, this is going to be shown on the BBC. It's going to be shown on Sky. It's going to be shown on Channel 4 for the very first time. It's going to be televised in 180 countries. When you talk about social media impressions, just specifically from CAF social media, whether it's TikTok and YouTube, they do more than billions of views, more than 5 billion views the last time around. We're talking about more than 6,000 press accreditation applications. I think it's only increasing in views for a few different reasons. Number one, I think this specific CAF administration has done a good job of making sure that this tournament is broadcast in as many free-to-air channels and homes as possible. They're not worried about making good deals and getting TV revenue right now. It's more like get the product out, we can capitalize on it later. And the second thing is that because Africa is such a young continent, and social media, usually younger people are more active on social media. This tournament tends to do incredibly well on places like X, places like TikTok, and YouTube as well. So I think it's found its place. It's nestled right comfortably in the middle of the year for many of the European leagues. And I think people are paying attention more than ever.
Yeah, Nigeria, the current champions, they were
Ivory
dismal.
Coast. Nigeria finalists last time around.
Oh, apologies. Yeah, of course they were. Yeah, apologies. Yeah, of course. I misspoke. Yeah, Ivory Coast current champions. I was going to say Nigeria didn't even make it into the World Cup, so at least you'll get to see them this time around. But Ivory Coast, how strong contenders are they for retaining their title?
So usually at any AFCON, you can turn your brain off, and if you want to preview the next one, you could say, we have two automatic favorites, hosts and defending champions. This time around, there's a lot more doubt on the defending champions. The hosts remain favorites, clear favorites, but the defending champions. Yes, exactly. The defending champions, people have a lot of questions about. So last time around, they had an incredibly complex and difficult group stage phase before going on to win the tournament. They lost in their third and final match of the group stages 4-0 at home while they're hosting the tournament to Equatorial Guinea. Their coach quits on the team after that third group match, despite them not being officially eliminated. They hired the assistant coach, Emers Faye, who's Ivorian. He ends up, they managed to squeak through as one of the fourth best placed third place finish in the group stages. They managed to win one round of 16 match, quarterfinal match, gain a little bit of momentum, players get fit, and somehow, some way, they cobbled together an AFCON winning campaign. It was a thing of dreams. Since then, they've qualified for the World Cup, and they've done it without conceding a single goal. One of two teams in Africa that went 10 games without conceding a single goal, the other being Tunisia. but they've only been winning matches 1-0, 2-1, and the Ivorians are not really happy with the style of play. Also, if you look at like their players, some of the players that really dragged them to the AFCON winning title, whether it was Simon Adingra, who's currently at Sunderland, Sebastian Aller, who's currently playing in the Netherlands, but he was at Borussia Dortmund last time around. They have struggled. Adingra hasn't been called up. Aller is playing again in the Dutch league now. Might not be fit. The midfield is aging. So uh, people feel a little bit down on the Ivory Coast, and they think if they can get to a quarterfinal appearance, that could be good for them.
Yeah, Morocco. Wow, this is because they did so well at the last World Cup. I suppose there'll be a lot of focus on them in any case. You said they're the favourites. They've got home advantage, etc. And they, you might look at this as a warm up for their World Cup.
No, you can't. You know why? Because they haven't won the African Cup of Nations for 50 years. Right now, I just saw a tweet yesterday that said, urgent, danger. There's a huge sandstorm blowing through Morocco at the moment, causing, grave public danger, and there's a crisis. It's like, really, that's curious. Well, where's that happening? It must be in the south somewhere. And as you dig a little deeper, the next paragraph, you had to click the see more on the post on X. When you click the see more, the next paragraph was this was provoked by an assistant at the Moroccan Federation opening up their trophy cabinet and the dust sort of billowing out. So they are on the butt of a lot of jokes. The last time they won this competition was in 1976, and the Moroccan coach Walid Regragui said, "Before we can be kings of the world, we have to be the kings of our continent." And that really is the mentality that they're going into this tournament with. They're at home. There's no excuses now. This is a tournament that has plagued them for such a long period of time. They know they're the favorites. They're shouldering that responsibility. But they cannot afford to look past this tournament. Not only because it means so much to win this tournament, but also, let's play a hypothetical over here. Let's say they get eliminated in the quarterfinals or the semifinals. That means the coach is fired. If the coach is fired, that means the entire World Cup preparations are in flux. So if they're going to have a good World Cup, they need to have a good African Cup of Nations. So they cannot afford to look past these next few weeks.
And of course, you've already mentioned what a young nation Africa, or continent Africa is. It's also a huge continent, and it's economically challenged, let's face it, in many different ways. Home advantage means basically, there aren't going to be supporters from many of the other countries, are there?
Yeah.
Maybe North African countries, but sub-Saharan countries, there'll be very, very few supporters traveling into those countries, apart from the people who are already there. I wonder how much more advantageous home advantage is in that kind of climate.
You're right, Dotun, but there's one major exception. I think this is going to be the first African Cup of Nations that's really, really propelled by the diaspora. Because you have obviously huge African populations in countries like France, Belgium, the Netherlands, England. There are cheap Ryanair flights going from all of those countries to Morocco. And you have, I'll give you a small example. Comoros. Comoros have 50,000 people living in Marseille. They're qualified and they're playing the opening match against Morocco. I can guarantee you at least 1,000 Comorians are coming down from Marseille for that specific match. So I think there's going to be a good amount of supporters that are, first generation immigrants or even second generation immigrants from the diaspora that are going to come and fill the stadiums and carry this tournament, as well as the North Africans, as you mentioned.
Okay, now you tweaked my interest. It makes it sound like this tournament is truly global, which I suppose every Africa Cup of Nations takes a step further forwards and it becomes less parochial and the opportunities are open. Of the sort of influence of overseas players, really, that's what dominates. I mean, it dominates not just the Africa Cup of Nations, of course, it dominates the World Cup as well. Overseas players playing for countries, whether it be Brazil or Argentina, most of their team will be playing in the European leagues, for example. There's nothing specific to Africa Cup of Nations, but I do wonder, as we know, the narrative, as you know jolly well, is that the Premier League's losing a host of its good players to the Africa Cup of Nations. Well, so be it. However, how much difference do those international players make? What do they bring to the tournament?
we've had, I think, the first pair that really were great on the continent and then in Europe. I think it was the Drogba Eto'o sort of rivalry competition that was going on in the early 2000s. Of course, prior to that, we had like, your George Weahs. You always had good players. But those two, Chelsea and Barcelona, winning, everything there is to win, whether it's Premier Leagues or Ligas or Champions Leagues. I think they were the first ones that really like carried the mantle, and we realized that, African stars are amongst the best players in these Western European leagues. And then over the last 10 years, there's been a three-headed monster of Sadio Mane, Riyad Mahrez, and Mohamed Salah, of course. They are all on the tail end of their careers. They've done a fantastic job. Two of them winning PFA Players of the Year, Sadio finishing second in the Ballon d'Or voting. They've won the same thing, everything there is to win. But I do wonder who's going to carry the mantle for them. We have Victor Osimhen, we have Ashraf Hakimi, but I don't think they're quite on that level just yet. So yeah, this is what helps sell the tournament as well. People like to talk about the color of the fans. They like to talk about the joy this tournament procures. Those things are true. I also like watching, players playing in domestic leagues in South Africa or in Egypt. It always adds an element of surprise and mystery. But without a doubt, what carries this tournament, what sells this tournament to a global audience are these superstars. And I'm just a tins worried that our main superstars over the last decade are sort of closing their careers.
Yeah, as for the future, for us to return and maybe examine that in greater detail. For now, though, do they still, the holy trinity that you mentioned there of Mahrez, Sadio Mane, and Mo Salah, do they still run things in the African Cup of Nations? Are they the players that will make the difference?
Sadio Mane is still a very influential player with Senegal. Some Senegalese fans believe that he should be benched, but it's an argument. Riyad Mahrez, most Algerian supporters believe should be benched. They believe that he's lost a step in Saudi Arabia and that there are better options in terms of younger players playing behind him. There's Ilan Kabel at Paris FC. There's Anis Hadji Moussa at Feyenoord. Two very young, talented players with very similar profiles. Mohamed Salah is still the undoubted king, and this is going to be the main storyline. It's been one of the main storylines in the Premier League, and it's going to carry on over into the African Cup of Nations. Because unlike his two peers, Mohamed Salah has never won the African Cup of Nations. He got to the finals twice, 2017, 2021. But unlike the other two, he hasn't single-handedly propelled his nation to an AFCON title. And he's sort of taken over from a generation that won three on the trot in 2006, 2008, and 2010. And he's constantly being compared to those greats of the past. And I think he's going to come into this tournament with a lot to prove because, of course, Liverpool seem to think he's done. He is sort of, we could say that this is probably the last African Cup of Nations where he's at his physical peak, if he still is there. And I think it would be a sort of response to Liverpool and to everybody doubting him to say, like, look, you guys thought I was done. In the toughest of circumstances, I managed to get my team to finally win this tournament that means so much to me. And he's already said that winning this tournament would mean more than a European Champions League to him. Yaya Toure, I listened to him speaking yesterday. He said the exact same thing. This means so much to these players because what it does is it crystallizes their legacies at home.
Yeah. So then, I mean, he's going to have to do Mo Salah's going to have to do Lionel Messi essentially in the way that Lionel Messi won the World Cup for Argentina last time around. He's literally going to have to do that. He's going to have to not just be the leader, but he's going to have to show some magic on that pitch, that people maybe thought he had back in the day, but thought he might have lost. He needs to outrun everybody rather than be caught up by defenders, amongst other things. Has he got the wherewithal, or have the other teams lack the ability to stop him from being effective?
It's a very good question. I think it's probably like one of the main questions that we're tussling with. The two times he got to the final prior, Once was under an Argentinian coach named Hector Cooper. The other one was under the former Sir Alex Ferguson assistant, Carlos Queiroz. Both of those managers are very pragmatic, if not defensive, as I'm trying to get this glare off the camera, but whatever. You guys are going to have to deal with it. And so the team was almost cut in half, where they were really defending and just hitting teams on the counter attack with Mo Salah's pace. And then they would push teams to 0-0 draws in the knockout stages and win penalty shootouts. They were very gritty, and it wasn't the sort of free-flowing football that we were used to seeing from Egypt in the late 2000s. That said, I think under this current coach, they're going to try to play differently. They're going to try to play an attacking brand of football. And he's surrounded by better quality players in attack, whether it's Omar Marmoush from Manchester City, Trezeguet, former Aston Villa winger, who's currently playing at Al Ahly. But they also have a player that I don't think many people know is Ibrahim Adel. He's currently playing in the Emirates, but he's a very, very talented facilitator, similar to maybe Isco, if you guys remember him from his time at Real Madrid. So he has a lot of quality surrounding him now, and I think he's going to shoulder less of a burden, which should be able to liberate him. But again, this is going to be the main storyline, I think, that we're really going to be following is, can he pull it off? If he does, I think we can probably start making arguments for him being the greatest African player of all time. He's definitely in there with a shout if he does.
Well, yeah, he's got to pull off some magic, like I say. And, the likelihood of that, we'll wait and see. It'll be exciting, nevertheless. Who have Egypt got to kick off with? Do you know their fixtures?
I know the second match is Boxing Day, and there's no Premier League, and it's against South Africa. And I know that I was just talking to some producers at Channel 4 who told me this is going to be like a marquee matchup that we're planning on showing on the main channel and everything like that. But I'm not sure who the first match is
Zimbabwe. They're playing Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Yeah, on the 22nd of December.
22nd, and then the 26th is the main match against South Africa.
Yeah, that's right, and that's the one that they have to be somewhat wary of, I would have thought. Zimbabwe, though, do they pose much opposition?
Their problem is that they have suffered injuries to three of their best players. So striker Tino Kadewere, who's out of the squad, Marshall Manetzi, currently at Wolverhampton Wanderers, out of the squad as well as former Aston Villa midfielder Marvelous Nakamba. Three, top players, all injured. They have a new coach that was just parachuted in last month named Mario Marinitsa. He's from Romania. Doesn't really have an extensive CV. When I speak to Zimbabwean journalists, they're very pessimistic about their side's chances. So should be 3 points for the Pharaohs in their first match.
Yeah, I'm looking at the fixtures here. It feels as if some of these. So hang on, just first of all, is it 2 teams from each group get through?
Automatically, and then there's also 4 best third place teams. So 16 out of 24 teams will be advancing to the round of 16. So they should be able to get through. If you get 3 points, you're through. Sure.
Because I was looking, obviously, Egypt and South Africa are the favourites in Group B. Angola versus Zimbabwe. I'd have thought that went to Angola.
Yeah, Angola last time around were one of the surprise teams in the AFCON. They made it to the quarterfinals, but then they had a really poor World Cup qualifying campaign where they weren't even in with a shout. Cape Verde ended up qualifying from that group. So they are... We don't know what to expect from them. We don't know if they're going to revert to that form that they had the last time around at the AFCON, or with a new coach, if they're going to be able to... if they're going to struggle to find their footing.
Yeah,
but for sure they'll be favored ahead of Zimbabwe.
I can't see any obvious groups of death. Can you?
No obvious groups of death. No. There is one. Actually, I don't have them memorized, but I remember looking at one saying this one's tougher than the others.
Yeah.
Group A, for instance, I think Comoros are a team that you shouldn't really discount, but Morocco should just be tough. Senegal, DRC, Benin is a little bit tough, as is Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Gabon. Gabon had a really good World Cup qualifying, and then the final one would be the one we just spoke about: Egypt, South Africa, Angola. These are the 3 toughest groups, in my opinion.
Yeah, because I'm looking at those groups now and thinking, well, a lot of the teams, it does seem as if each group has 2 standout teams that
Yeah.
are going to go through. So, are the others just playing for third place then? Really?
Um, some are for playing for not even they're like Sudan, for example. Sudan,
Yeah.
nobody's going to admit that they're just there to make up the numbers, but Sudan's playing for something far more important than even third place. Their
Well,
country's in the
politics.
midst of a civil war. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
For them, a chance to raise, their flag and to unite their fans and their country just for 90 minutes means so damn much to them. But I do think what you're coming to, and I think it's a very good point, actually, it's a very salient point, is that I think there's in Africa, I think number 1 to number 8 are very, very good, and there's very little that separates them. And then number 8 to number 12 are pretty decent as well. And then underneath that is where the quality starts to dilute, which is why I was never against, Africa getting 9 to 10 places at the World Cup, because I think it's not going to dilute the quality so much. But then once you get past that 12, 13, that's when we start getting a little bit of, quality. I don't know what the word is, dilution. I don't think dilution is the correct word, but
Yeah, you mentioned as well that CAF, the Confederation of African Football, has decided not to go for the money yet, but to make sure that these matches are as much as possible free to air.
Yep.
And obviously, there's a wide constituency throughout the world, though. But within Africa, what difference does that make? How would people otherwise have seen these matches? In some of the more sort of again financially challenged countries.
No, but this is what they've done, I think, very, very well. So not only are the free to air benefits in the UK, in France, in Africa, every single country is pretty much gifted their own nation's 3 matches on the public television channel, usually the state television channel. So, for example, Algeria for free gets all of Algeria's matches broadcast for free on free to air state television channel. So all 54 countries will be able to watch their team, or what will be able to watch, first of all, and then particularly if you're participating, if your country's participating, you have your 3 matches for free.
And who are the most passionate fans amongst all these teams for you?
I think it's a difficult thing to say, to affirm. Me personally, I'm biased, but I really love the way North African fans drum up an atmosphere, and it's influenced by the Mediterranean. So when you think about places like Marseille, Napoli, Roma, even Athens, Istanbul, you have a lot of the same kinds of customs when it comes to supporting. So you're talking about flares, pyrotechnics, fireworks, drums, and they pack out stadiums. A country like South Africa, which I love and respect, and which I think plays incredible football and have very high expectations for their national team. We can't say that their country is synonymous with filling up stadiums on a consistent basis, even though they're a football mad country. Many people just prefer to watch at home. In North Africa, people fill the stadiums and they make a lot of noise. So I would say any of the North African countries, particularly Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia.
Yeah, to be fair, South Africa is known for its vuvuzelas,
which Mark Gleason actually did a great job of reporting on. I think he said that before 2010, the vuvuzelas were never used in South Africa, and that people thought it was something that was traditional and something that was innate to sort of South African football culture. But it was really like, the story is actually much different. It's something like there was somebody that worked with a Chinese importer and just brought in a bunch of plastic horns and just distributed them for the World Cup and sold them. And it's now sort of become a synonymous with South African football, but was never really the case 30, 40 years ago.
There are so many stories around the African teams, and for the neutral observer who may be swayed by the background, the history of, as we are swayed by the background of, or the history of the Africa Cup of Nations itself, because it's a 35th tournament this time around, I think. But there will be people who are swayed by the history or the anecdotes from one team or another. Which are the teams that could get us neutrals following them, if you like, the perhaps non-controversial teams, which is the underdog. We need a good underdog to support them. I mean, apart from who did you mention before who's going to get spanked? I think Sudan.
I didn't say spanked. I said they were playing for something else. It was an euphemism. But
fair enough. Apologies. In my head, it was just like, okay, they're going to get. No, but Sudan is a case in point, and it's not the first time. It's not unusual for African teams and indeed teams in South America and elsewhere in the world to play for something greater than just 3 points at the end of the day. You know, can it bring their country together? A victory like this, I imagine it would go a long way to bringing about at least a talk of a ceasefire. Talks about talks. You know,
I don't know. I would never presume that like football could bring about a ceasefire. It's happened before on the African continent, but for a country like Sudan, what fans told me when I was in Qatar just 2 weeks ago, and they were competing in the Arab Cup. What fans told me was that it's the only time over the last, two and a half years where everybody just stops and watches and is doing the same thing, in the country. They're watching football and they're united and they're rooting for the same team, in a country that's split into two, they're rooting for the same team. So, somebody told me football is the only thing that unites all ethnicities and all tribes in Sudan. So, it's not just a nice thing to say. It's not just a journalistic narrative. It's absolutely the truth for sure. But besides them, if we talk about underdogs, who else but the Comoros, an archipelago?
Yeah, well, I can't say either. Don't worry. Archipelago, I think is the one.
Yeah, archipelago.
Archipelago. Yeah.
800,000 people. So they are absolutely, one of the smaller nations that are competing, and they have the diaspora element where 3/4 of their team is going to be born and raised in France, playing usually in the lower leagues in France, in the second division and third division, and it's a national team that's sort of propped up by the kids of these immigrants that went to go on and live, make a better life for themselves, usually work very working class jobs in the suburbs of Marseille. And these kids end up playing football, and they're good enough. They're not good enough to play for France. They're not good enough to make Comoros an African footballing powerhouse, but they're good enough to get them to a 24-team African Cup of Nations. And they have a really cool nickname, the coelacanths, which is a prehistoric fish found only off the coast of Comoros. Actually, they thought this fish was extinct like 500 years, and it only reappeared very recently. So they're very proud of that, and it's like it's also a unique culture because they have mix of the Indian Ocean and South Asia sort of, as well as East Africa and they're islanders. So I really like Comoros, and they're dear to my heart. And so they're always fun to root for.
I think you've done a good job of selling Comoros. Which other African teams have got funny nicknames? Because you've got the mighty Super Eagles, obviously, and you've got the indomitable Lions and the Elephants. Côte d'Ivoire, the Elephants, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Indomitable Lions, I learned, was a newspaper competition. So that they did in Cameroon ahead of the 1972 AFCON when they were hosting it. And that was chosen as the best name. It was democratically voted on. I like Angola's black antelopes. It's actually not an antelope. It's Palancas negras. I think it's a special kind of antelope that's pretty big. And apparently this animal is only found in Angola. And one thing that I learned, again, just the last 2 days, is that it's never been put in a zoo. It's protected in Angola. It's never been displayed in a zoo. And it's a very resilient animal. So that I thought that was pretty cool. Algeria is the phoenix, which is like this minute pocket-sized fox that you can only find in the Sahara Desert as well. I love the nicknames in Africa because besides the cool animals, you also have usually an adjective, which is rare in football. You don't have like indomitable lions, I don't know, super eagles, it's that adjective I think really sets it apart. And on one of them, there's only one national team that has a Pan-African nickname, which is the Ghana Black Stars. Black Stars, of course, because there's a black star in their flag, but that black star from their flag comes from Marcus Garvey and the Black Star shipping line, and it's an ode to him that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah sort of instilled into Ghanaian culture. So I love that nickname as well because it's a nickname not just for Ghana but for all of Africa.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that point. the Cup of Nations itself, though, it's got its mascot, and its mascot's name is Assad.
which
That's
means
right.
lion in Arabic. It's
Oh, it
classical
does
Arabic. It
mean
means lion.
lion.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
right. I thought it was an unfortunate, reference to
Bashar.
my political. Well, yeah, you just think, come on, man, why Assad? And it is a lion. It is a lion,
Yeah,
like World Cup Willie.
They're named
But
the Atlas Lions. They're named the Atlas
yeah,
Lions. So Atlas is a mountain range in Morocco that stretches actually into Algeria, and
yeah.
there used to be lions in North Africa before they were all hunted to extinction. So
Yeah, well, it would be a sad day if Assad doesn't roar like a lion. Yeah, puns and jokes aside. So far though, we've got Morocco to be the favourites. Anybody else in contention apart from Morocco?
Morocco are 1A, Senegal are 1B. Senegal, I think, have maybe a top 10 roster in world football. Even their goalkeepers. Usually you have one decent goalkeeper, and then you have a second and a third goalkeeper in Africa that's usually, playing in the domestic league, or a second or third goalkeeper in some lower league in Europe. All three of their goalkeepers are big names and starters in top 5 European leagues. So player 1 to player 26 in Senegal are quality. They have quality and depth, which sets them apart. I think they have a better squad than Morocco, but Morocco are obviously hosting the competition, and they have the momentum as well. They're playing at home. I mentioned this a few days ago. Morocco are the only country that compete. My friend told me they competed in every single FIFA competition, under 17, under 20, women's competitions, every single one that FIFA hosted this calendar year, except for beach soccer. So, I mean, that just tells you everything you need to know. They've been incredibly competitive at all levels in all categories. So Morocco and Senegal are definitely 1A, 1B. And then underneath, you can have like a second category of contenders, which could be usually you lean towards the North Africans when it's a North African hosting. So you could put maybe Egypt and Algeria in there. We can put the reigning champions, Ivory Coast, just for shits and giggles. And then maybe even, you never want to discount a country like Cameroon, which is going through an incredible amount of governing turmoil from the federation level. But just because they're the indomitable lions, because they've won 5 of these tournaments before, and they've won at times when we never expected anything from them before, I guess you could always throw a country like that in as well.
And it's also the country of Roger Miller, so you can't argue against that. What about the challenges for you as a journalist? You're going off. Is it tomorrow that you're going off then?
Saturday morning, so I
Saturday
still have a
morning.
few more days.
And
First match is on Sunday.
on Sunday. And are you basing yourself in Casablanca? Where?
So actually, 4 stadiums are going to be hosting matches in Rabat. So a third of the matches will be in Rabat. So Rabat is where I'm going to be, but it's only a 1-hour drive, so it's going to be easy to shuttle back and forth.
Yeah, indeed. And they've got train service now as well in Morocco. Really
Morocco, I think,
impressive,
have
though.
maybe the best train system in Africa, maybe going from city to city. Very easy to use. You can use your credit card. You can book online. You can use an app. It's really, really convenient, and it's very, very affordable as well. So not only
Yeah,
affordable, budget airlines flying in, but also affordable train transport as well.
it's amazing because it's a new transport service. It's a new train service. So it's got all the bells and whistles of new technology and everything, but it's setting a marker down for Africa. I think they've done this because they want to take their nation to the next step. Football's a part of that, but also
100%.
economically, to take their nation to the next step. In which case, if you're inviting tourists to come, for example, you do need a system for tourists to be able to get around and feel safe, etc. So I'm looking forward to that one for the World Cup. But you, the next World Cup, that is. You on Monday when I was speaking to you, you were very dismissive of the World Cup, which since we've spoken, they've dropped the prices, the phenomenal prices they were charging. You can now get some tickets for about 45 quid, which, let's face it, that's as good as you're going to get. But it seems like you're going to have to jump through hoops to get those. I actually think 45 quid is about the right pitch for tickets for this World Cup in a country that's still somewhat hit or miss with regards to whether people attend. I imagine will be some empty stadiums and so on, or relatively empty stadiums. But you were dismissive of the World Cup in comparison to the Africa Cup of Nations. Do you mind explaining why? Obviously, we know of all the sort of FIFA shenanigans, but in terms of experience.
Me personally, like my interest Dotun is in African football. So that's honestly I I'm not doing it to like be a hipster. I know I can come off like it can come off like this. I'm not
No,
trying to do it to be
not at
different.
all.
It's just what it's what I sort of chased professionally. It's the reason why I've moved to the continent. Sort of like what I'm passionate about. It's what I love and what I love to do. So I'm again, I'm not doing it to be edgy. I'm not doing it to be different, but I would seriously rather watch an African Champions League match than a European Champions League match. And I often watch more domestic football in Africa than I do in Europe these days. So for me, I have a competition where I have 24 African teams and a competition right now, hopefully we'll have 10 African teams, nine to 10. That's just the main thing of it is I would rather be covering this tournament than that one. I still like the World Cup. I still enjoy the World Cup. I'll still flip on, a Venezuela versus or whatever, Ecuador versus whoever the kid, Germany. But my love is still African football. That's what I'm passionate about, and that's the reason why I'm always going to prioritize the African Cup of Nations over a World Cup. Um, Also, there's one more thing for me is one of my favorite things about covering this tournament is just the wider feeling of family that I get from seeing a lot of colleagues. People like Mark, Mark Gleason, who I so respect, so revere. He's one of a handful, seriously, like you can count them on your fingers, uh, that has the seniority, the experience, the knowledge, and he's so kind as well. I learned so much from him every single time. If I get to the stadium, usually I get there an hour and a half prior to kickoff, and I see him there in the press box. We'll just talk for 30, 45 minutes, and I'll try to pick his brains about what happened in 1988 or what happened in 1984 or 1996. He really is the oracle of African football. So seeing people like Mark, but not just Mark, all of my colleagues, I'm going to have a suitcase full of just goodies from Algeria to bring to people, and I'm going to hug them. And just seeing my colleagues and my friends, I think that's also one of the main reasons why I love going to the Cup of Nations.
So if there are still people planning to go to the tournament this time around, when's the best time to get there? Say you can only go for a week. Is it the opening side, the first week, as in for this weekend, or is it the middle week or the last weeks, which themselves might be somewhat problematic?
I think the answer is, what do you prefer? Do you prefer to watch teams that you probably will never have a chance to watch again, like a Mozambique or an Equatorial Guinea or Sudan or Comoros? If you like, that's personally, I prefer the beginning of the tournament because everything is possible. Everybody believes they have a chance, and you get a lot of these human interest stories from the smaller nations where players are not even professional most of the time. A lot of them are playing amateur football. So I like those stories. I like the beginning of the tournament, the excitement. Towards the end, I'm usually feeling very exhausted. Access is very restricted because all the journalists are now focused on two teams or four teams or eight teams. Um, but that feeling also of it's the semifinal, it's the final, this is the big stage. The country's gonna party if they win. All of that is very valuable as well. So I think what tickles your fancy? What do you prefer? You prefer learning geography, that feeling of optimism, the tournament being fresh, or do you prefer the big stage and the chips being all in and possible celebrations for nights on end?
Is there a market for the earlier stages in terms of journalism? Because obviously the European journalists will descend on
Mhm.
the final week for the semi-final and the final. That's where their stories are. They might give a nod to the opening ceremonies, but beyond that, they're not going to be there really for all those middle stages, are there? Is there a market? Is there a global market for the stories from the earlier stages?
Usually, I find that most of my work is done within the first 2 weeks, actually, because as you mentioned, people will send their own teams over starting from the quarterfinals or the semifinals, particularly if there's, Mo Salah is playing or Morocco, the hosts are going to be in it. Most of my work is done, preview stage and then group stages. Um, Once that's done, then I usually just kick my feet back up and just relax and try to enjoy it as much as possible. Try to pace myself, try to work on a few other things, try to explore the country. Um, the one tournament where I made the most amount of money was actually Cameroon because it was 2021. It was in the midst of that Omicron COVID virus, and all of the media outlets were scared, liability purposes reasons, were scared to send their journalists to Cameroon. So I was like the one of a few there covering in English, and I felt like I was batting editors away. But so yeah, but to be honest, when I go to this tournament, I'm not too fussed about working. I'm just really focused on observing, taking insight, again, spending time with quality people. I don't really try to like make my money back or anything like that. I'm just worried about enjoying it.
Yeah, must ask you though about your predictions for these opening round matches. Morocco versus Comoros. Morocco win, yeah.
Yeah, if I'm trying to be responsible and objective, Morocco absolutely win this. Yeah,
That's being responsible and
yes,
objective.
yeah,
Yeah. So Comoros are there to have a good day out and take along
uh,
some picnic sandwiches with you. I mean, I'm not being disrespectful, but I
they're
think
they're gonna try their hardest. They played in Cameroon at the AFCON in Cameroon in the group stages, and Comoros held them to a 2-0 victory, and it was 1-0 for a long period of time, and they were threatening to equalize, and the last goal came in the last minute. So they played them tough, and Comoros, even in qualifiers for that AFCON in 2021, they played Morocco tough too, where they held them to a 1-0 victory as well. So it's not going to be easy, I don't think, but opening match at home, 80,000 supporters. I can't bet against Morocco.
Yeah, and Group A are going to be playing in Rabat and Casablanca, as you mentioned earlier on. Mali versus Zambia's first game. So the Morocco versus Comoros is on Sunday, 8 o'clock kickoff. On Monday at 3 o'clock, Mali versus Zambia. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'll be at that game as well. I think Mali, Zambia have a new coaching quartet. Which in American football, they say if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. And I think it's similar over here. If you have four coaches, you have none. Like, what is a coaching quartet to me? I think Mali have looked really good under their Gambian coach, Tom Saintfiet. He's actually Belgian, but he's been given Gambian nationality, so I consider him Gambian now. He Under him, they've only lost one match. They've conceded very few goals and they've scored many. So they have much better quality from a player perspective, and they have better momentum as well. So I think Mali over Zambia.
As you've already said, the Premier League is giving way to the African Cup of Nations, maybe not intentionally, on Boxing Day, where you've got a couple of matches in Group A, Zambia versus Comoros. Zambia win?
I think tie.
Tie, okay. And Morocco versus, you say tie, we say draw, but
draw, sorry.
Okay,
And Morocco will probably beat Mali as well. I think Mali will get 9 points out of 9 in the group stages.
Okay. Mali?
Oh, sorry, Morocco will get 9 points out of 9.
Right, okay. And then in the Zambia-Morocco game, that would be Morocco, Comoros versus Mali. That would be Mali, won't it?
Probably,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. Group B, though. Group B kick-off on Monday at 6 o'clock, South Africa versus Angola. You've already bigged up South Africa. You going there?
Yeah, I think South Africa. Actually, I didn't include them in that second category of contenders, but they should probably be the first name after Morocco and Senegal as favorites. I really, really rate them. So I think they're going to take care of business against Angola.
And that's in Marrakesh. I've been past that stadium. The Agadir match between Egypt and Zimbabwe. Egypt, I suppose you got to go for.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's also on Monday. Boxing Day, Angola versus Zimbabwe.
I think Zimbabwe are not going to win any points in this group, or maybe just the one. And I don't think if they win even the 1 point, it's going to be against Angola. So I think they'll lose that match.
And Egypt, South Africa, biggie.
And that's this is going to be
boxing
a marquee matchup. Yeah, this is going to be in the first 3-4 days of the tournament. This might be the biggest game, I think, in the first 4 days of this tournament. And I think South Africa. No, let's do scoring draw 2-2.
But there will be goals. Yeah, I mean, Mohamed Salah on the pitch. He's got to have some goals, haven't you?
Not just him, even South Africa, they are the only side on the African continent that consistently build up to their goal. So they'll have 6-7 passes in sequence before scoring a goal, as opposed to scoring a lot of goals from set pieces like Ghana do, or scoring on a counterattack, or from shots from a distance. They like to play that tiki-taka triangle passing into the box and score. So attractive football. I think it's going to be a scoring draw.
Yeah, and what about in Group C, Nigeria versus Tanzania on Tuesday?
Tanzania are aging. I think Nigeria are not in a good place at the moment. There's been a lot of criticism for the squad selection, but the coach has said he hasn't been paid for 4 or 5 months. The general atmosphere around the team is sort of depressed.
Yeah.
I still think they get a victory over here against Tanzania and Fez.
Gosh, yeah. Oh my goodness. Anyway, Tunisia versus Uganda. Tunisia, yeah.
Yeah, Tunisia.
Um, and what about Nigeria versus Tunisia? That would be the day after Boxing Day, 27th of December.
At the risk of angering you, I think Tunisia is going to win this match, and they beat them in 2021 in the round of 16 as well, and they always play them tough. Tunisia, I think, on ascending trajectory, and I think Nigeria on a little bit on a descending trajectory. The only way that this match finishes in a Nigeria victory instead of a draw or a Tunisia victory is if Victor Osimhen takes over, which he's completely capable of doing.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. But for my benefit, and I wouldn't get angry, Tunisia, better team, made the best team win. Dr. Congo playing Benin on the 23rd of December on Wednesday, next Wednesday.
Good, really good game, underrated game. Benin pushed South Africa and Nigeria far in World Cup qualifying.
Sorry, next Tuesday, isn't it? It's next Tuesday. Apologies, yeah.
Indeed,
So Benin,
indeed.
yeah. Benin, you're going.
No. I like Dr. Congo. Dr. Congo are they finished third. They finished fourth last AFCON, and they've been very consistent since then. And they've done a great job of recruiting from the diaspora recently. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Axel Tuanzebe, 2 Premier League players, but also a lot of players from Belgium as well. So give me the Congo.
What's it like when those players who were Aaron Wan-Bissaka's, British through and through and through and through, when they go back to their ancestral homes to represent them, how are they received there? It's like, it's not just in Africa, because I was thinking of Matty Cash representing Poland, and he's probably the best right back that England have got at the moment, and he represents Poland,
I remember asking Wilfred Zaha about this because he went to Gabon for the 2017 AFCON, and I think that was maybe just a few games after he made his debut for the Ivorian national team. It might have even been that competition might have even been his debut. And I said, "What was it like in Oyem?" And Oyem is the jungle in Gabon. It's not near the estuary and the seaside and everything. It's really the tropical jungle near the equator and everything, and it's far and there's no roads out there. Insects as big as your face, and that's what he told me. He's like, "Oh my days!" He said, "Oh my days." I remember. He said he was talking about the size of the mosquitoes and the moths and this and that, and it leaving an impression and how difficult it was to play in those conditions with the humidity of that that tropical humidity as well. So I don't think it's easy. Busaka has less than 5 caps. He has played in Kinshasa, so that's going to be good for him. But that's the first time he played in Congo. That was just a few months ago. So I don't think it's going to be easy for him. To be fair, though, Morocco will have a similar climate to Europe, and that's why I say this will be a kinder tournament to players from the diaspora. In the moment, I think it's rainy all across Morocco at the moment. So still, it's not going to be easy for a lot of these players that have were born and raised and played their entire football careers in Europe. But I think to a lesser degree because we are hosting it in Morocco.
And when Senegal play DR Congo on the 27th of December, who's going to win that?
Very good game. Senegal, they played each other in World Cup qualifiers, and Senegal beat DR Congo to send them to the playoffs. If DR Congo won that match, it would have been Senegal in the intercontinental playoffs, trying to get that 10th place. Senegal beat DR Congo in Kinshasa, in DR Congo, after being down 2-0 at halftime, and they came back and they won that 3-2. DR Congo, unfortunately, were not really fit. Yohan Wissa hadn't played a single match. Tuanzebe hadn't played a match. Chancellor Mbemba hadn't played a single match. So this is going to be a kind of a revenge match for Congo. I still think Senegal are going to win.
And moving on to Group E, Algeria, I imagine, will top that group where you're based. We've already said that Sudan might struggle. Burkina Faso and Equatorial Guinea are in the midst of all of that. Equatorial Guinea have been quite good, haven't they, in this qualification?
They beat, as we mentioned, they beat Ivory Coast 4-0 last time around at the AFCON. There's a problem with Equatorial Guinea is that they have a war between the players and the federation. Federation has been poor organizing things, logistics, and as a result, and even their player, Emilio Nsue, their best player and their captain, he was suspended for a year and a half during World Cup qualifiers because they said he was ineligible to play for Equatorial Guinea. And that was also, an organizing issue from the federation. So they've been warring and they've been at loggerheads for the last 2 years. So I don't know what kind of mental state that players are going to be going to this tournament in. I slightly favor Burkina Faso over them. And Algeria, I do think we're kind of sleeping on them. Nobody's really talking about them. The only country besides Morocco that has completely sold out all of their tickets at the moment is Algeria. So with that kind of home support, I expect them to make a good run in this tournament.
Yeah. And by the way, Equatorial Guinea meet Burkina Faso on Christmas Eve. That should be a tantalizing match. to see who gets third place and who gets second, maybe. And finally, in Group F, Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Mozambique, and Gabon. Ivory Coast coming out on top there or not?
Yeah, just because they're so difficult to beat. So, look, worst case scenario, Ivory Coast comes away out of this group with 5 points, 2 draws and a victory. But I don't think anybody's going to beat them because they're so difficult to score against. So, Ivory Coast tops this. Cameroon, we have no idea. Same thing what to expect. Same reason for Equatorial Guinea. Players versus Federation versus Ministry of Sport. If we get into it, we'd need another hour and a half to explain all the intricacies. What I would just say is that it's a mess. So they won't be preparing in ideal conditions, and we don't know what to expect. They can crash out in the group stages, or they can win the entire thing. But I think Ivory Coast and Cameroon, comfortable favorites in this group. Gabon, very, very good chance of getting through in third place as well.
And we've got a question. We've got a question from one of our listeners now, coming at you from Robbie. Do you think that the teams that are playing in the World Cup could either gain or lose momentum based on how they perform in this AFCON?
Very, very good question. And two World Cup countries don't have to worry about this, Ghana and Cape Verde, because they didn't qualify for this AFCON. So as soon as they qualified for the World Cup, they could, like everybody else, say, okay, you know what? Now we're focusing for the next 6-7 months. We don't have to worry about a poor result in the AFCON completely jeopardizing our World Cup preparations. So let's take Morocco. Everybody has high hopes for Morocco. I have high hopes for Morocco. I think they're favorites to win it. I've already said that. Everybody's saying that. Yesterday, I was talking to a Moroccan journalist, one of the best. I said, what's a result that would be so insufficient that they would fire their coach ahead of the World Cup? The same coach that took them to the semifinals of the last World Cup. He said, if we don't make the final, he's gone. If they don't make the final, think about how high those expectations are. So if Morocco flames out and has a horrible AFCON, coach is gone, new coach comes in. They have a good stable of Moroccan young coaches that ready to take over, but still, that is not ideal for their World Cup preparations. And besides them, there's a whole bunch of coaches that could be on the hot seat. One that isn't, for example, is DR Congo's Sébastien Desabre. Even if they get eliminated in the round of 16 or the group stages, I don't think he's going to be fired, especially because they have the intercontinental playoffs coming up in March. But for others, like Algeria, like Morocco, like Egypt, I'm willing to bet my entire house that the Egyptian coach is not surviving this African Cup of Nations if they get eliminated, before the semifinals, which is a very, very high bar. The AFCON could definitely throw a wrench into a lot of teams' World Cup preparations.
How are you going to explain it to your wife when she comes back that you just bet the entire house on a probability on the flick of a coin, the toss of a coin? Oh, well, it's your problem, mate, not mine. So, mate, you're going to have a fantastic time. I wish I was there. Let's try and link up. It's every 2 years, this Africa Cup of Nations. So maybe the next time around, we'll be able to do something and you can show us all the ropes. Start your own little travel firm to take us around the Africa Cup of Nations with your special skills and your knowledge of it. Would be great. Yeah. Sign up for that. Maher, Mezahi, of course. Now, how can we follow you during this Africa Cup of Nations?
So I'm on X, of course. It's my last name, Mezahi, and then my first name, Maher. On X, you can also follow my YouTube channel. It's called the African Five-A-Side Podcast. Or you can, throughout the tournament, I'll be collaborating with various different media outlets. I'll be on the BBC a lot, Channel 4 as well. So Boxing Day, after the Egypt-South Africa match, you should be getting a glimpse of me. Hopefully, it's not finalized yet, but you should be getting a glimpse of me on free-to-air British television. But besides that, Al Jazeera and various other digital media outlets as well. So everything will be posted from the X account. So just follow on X and everything will be visible from there.
So that's Mezahi Maher on X.
Exactly.
Brilliant. And thank you for watching this edition of the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast, and do make sure that you hit the like button, leave your comments, and do subscribe to the podcast and join us on our WhatsApp group as well, and tell everybody know about it as well. It's been amazing. Maher, enjoy the next 30 days, and we'll speak during the course of those 30 days and after as well. And welcome back to the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast anytime you like.
Will be a pleasure. Please don't hesitate.
Get in touch with the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast on Twitter at BrazilShirtPod, or you can email us brazilianshirtnamepod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and tell a friend. The Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast is an 1129 production.